Well, here it is, a groove slightly transformed, just a bit of a break from the norm, just a little something to break the monotony of all that hardcore dance that has gotten to be a little bit out of control. It's cool to dance, but what about the groove that soothes, that moves romance? Now give me a soft, subtle mix, and if
Hey
it ain't
guys,
broke,
welcome
then
to
don't try
the
to fix
Ram
it.
Report. Today's Thursday, November 21st, 2019. The game tomorrow, November 22nd, 7:30 p.m. Mountain Time, War Memorial Stadium in Wyoming, and right there in Laramie. Wyoming 6-4, coming off a loss to Utah State. CSU 4-6, coming off a loss to Air Force, where they had a big first half lead, 14-0 after the fumble return. The defense was playing well in the first half. Air Force comes out in the second half, hits them with some big passing plays, which you don't expect out of Air Force. And especially since CSU actually, believe it or not, has the 17th ranked pass defense in the country. But Air Force will do that to you. They'll lull you to sleep. They'll hit you over the top of some big plays. Bad tackling on some of those plays by CSU. And they come out with the win, even though CSU kind of mounted a comeback at the end. But it's also kind of garbage time. Air Force ends up with a pick six at the very end. And that's all she wrote. Wyoming comes into this game as a 7-point favorite, even with their backup quarterback in his second week. Tyler Vanderwall has struggled, only completing 52% of his passes, but that's not what Wyoming wants to do. They're going to want to run the ball down CSU's throat, especially with the 20-degree weather. Bunch of Georgia boys going up to Laramie, Wyoming. We'll see if they're engaged. We'll see if they can man up and stop the run. If they can, they should be able to hold down Wyoming's offense with the new quarterback and with CSU's above average, in fact, actually very good pass defense. On the other side of the ball, Wyoming's pass defense is 120th in the country, one of the worst in the nation. Their front seven's good. They can stop the run, but their secondary struggles, and CSU can take advantage of that, get Warren Jackson back on track. Last week against Air Force, he had 8 catches, 88 yards. A decent outing, but for Warren Jackson, you expect a little bit more. You expect some bigger plays in the passing game from him, some momentum changing 30, 40-yard catches. He didn't really have that last week. I expect him to have a big game this week, and if Patrick O'Brien has time, the offensive line can provide him with some pass protection, and he can make quick, decisive throws, which I feel like he struggled with last week against Air Force. CSU can certainly put some points on the board. The weather's not going to help, but I see them putting up some points and sticking in this game. Wyoming, on the other hand, they're going to want to slow down the game, keep the possession, run the ball, timely throwing, but really with the backup quarterback, I feel like they're going to be conservative. They're going to rely on their run game, lean on CSU's defensive line, which is surrendering 206.7 yards per game, 115th in the nation. The linebackers certainly have to step up. Daquan Jackson has had a nice season. He'll need to get his nose in there, stuff the run. This week is for CSU is going to be about whether they are mentally tough enough to go up there and play. Wyoming's always physical, not much to do in Wyoming except for lift weights and stand in the wind, I guess. But they're always a physical team. They hate CSU more than any other team in the country. and they're going to try to run it down CSU's throat. The question is, does CSU have the fortitude to go up there and play a physical brand of football, which CSU hasn't always been known to do, especially with a lot of kids from out of state, from the southeast. After Bobo comes here from Georgia, brings a lot of kids from the southeast. And do they care enough about beating Wyoming to go up there and play a physical game? Now, Bobo all week has been showing video on the Jumbotron while CSU's practicing of last year's loss to Wyoming. And he's been showing video of Wyoming players running around Canvas Stadium, holding up the boots, celebrating, chanting, "It sucks to be a CSU Ram," which, we get it. Yeah, a lot of times it does suck to be a CSU Ram. Tell us something we don't know. And the other bulletin board material comes out. Josh Allen, Wyoming's first round draft pick quarterback from 2 years ago, comes out this week and says he doesn't call CSU Rams, he calls them sheep. Wyoming boys, they have an affinity for sheep, always in the mind of sheep, so I can see why he's always thinking about sheep. But that being said, if CSU doesn't get up to play this game, they really, I don't know if Bobo can get them up to play any game, from here on out. Bobo is 1-12 now in rivalry games that involve trophies, which is CU, Air Force, and Wyoming. After last week's loss to Air Force, this is a huge game. Try to get another one of those rivalry wins. This record against rivals is abysmal. And this isn't going to be no easy task going up to Laramie. CSU has to keep their foot on the gas. If they jump out to a lead, don't go into Bobo's patented prevent offense. They need to keep the ball pushing downfield, hit to Warren Jackson, hit it to Dante Wright. The tight ends are going to be open. McBride has been having an amazing year. They need to feed him, So that being said, with Wyoming's running game, their ability to take the ball out of Patrick O'Brien's hand, controlled time of possession in a cold game, I'm going to have to say Wyoming comes away with the boot. Once again, my prediction, Wyoming 24, CSU 20. Close game, but Wyoming kind of controls the ground, gives up a couple big plays to Warren Jackson and stuff, maybe a late touchdown, failed onside kick. Wyoming runs around the field like they just won the Super Bowl. They get to 7 wins, maybe go to the New Mexico Bowl, maybe the Potato Bowl, where they'll be just at home with cold, crappy weather in December. They love that, and CSU goes to 1-13 versus rivals, and Bobo's 3-game win streak halfway through this season is feeling like a far way away, with Boise State coming into town the next Friday. Bobo's job certainly back on the line. Bobo's certainly back in the hot seat, and we'll see what happens. Anyway, enjoy the game, and as always, go Rams.